Welcome to Question It Podcast with Alexandra and
Janae, a space where we chat about any and everything. There's no topic too big or too taboo for us sisters to take on.
We promise to always give you uncensored questions and opinions.
Come on, let's chat. Yeah.
Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Question It Podcast. So happy that you guys are able to join us again. The chatter for today will be legacy and, the works in that and how you think about legacy and what you want to leave behind.
Yeah, so Alex, I'm so excited that we're here again. I'm so excited for all of our listeners to be here with us. We wish you were in the room with us, but we know that it doesn't always work out.
On. Yeah.
But yeah, like Charlotte said, today the chatter is, what do you want to be remembered for? So I think we should just jump right in and answer the question. So, Alex, what do you want to be remembered for?
That is a big question, I feel like there's so much, like, I would love to be remembered for as like a kind-hearted person, as a person that really cares when it comes to things like that. But I guess a hard worker and a successful businesswoman, and when the time comes, an amazing wife and mother. And
oh no, I think we
that
lost Alex.
Could be said with this question.
Alex, you like broke out for a second.
Can you not hear me? Oh, okay.
No, you completely froze and broke out. I heard you say you would like to be remembered for being like kind, a hard worker, successful, and when the time comes, a good mother, a good wife, and then you completely froze.
That's crazy. It's okay. Yeah, I was saying I would love to be remembered for all of those things. I think for me, I don't know why, but this question is so like puzzling because it's not something that I've actually sat down and thought about for myself. Like, oh, what do I want to be remembered for? Like throughout my whole life. I don't think that's ever been something that I've really sat down and thought about. What are your thoughts on it?
So it's funny that you say you've never thought about it, but I understand that it's puzzling. I would say it is a challenging question to have to face and actually think about, because even though we're mortal and like we all have an expiration date that we have no idea when it is, it seems like as a society it's like taboo to talk about the fact that you're gonna expire, you're gonna die. This body you're in is just like a temporary little car. It's like you're here for a moment and then eventually you're gonna move on to a new place and a new car, and it's not gonna be the same. And so I have thought about what I want to be remembered by. And it's very similar to what you said. Like, I want to be remembered as someone who was kind, someone who was peaceful, someone who was forgiving, someone who was generous, caring, of course. But I also want to be remembered as like a great mom and someone who left behind a mommy empire. So like some of our listeners may know me and know that I have my blog, and there's things I want to do with my blog, and I've written mommy books, and I'm in the process of writing another mommy book, and I've done toddler like activities. And like my mission behind all of like the stuff I do in the motherhood world and in the blog world is to help mothers who are young and who are new to the mom thing, because as we know, life doesn't come with like a manuscript or
No instructions.
table of contents. Yeah. And
No
so it's something that everyone like does and has done for years, but there's so many unanswered questions, and motherhood can feel very, very, very lonely. So I just want to create a community of moms who are willing to be there for each other, help each other, and share resources with one another, and laughs, and maybe even a glass of wine with one another. So I guess that was a lot of words to say. I just want to be remembered as someone who was always there to help someone else, a great mom, and someone who is kind. There's a quote that says, I don't remember who it's by. I'm terrible at remembering names.
Me too.
So if any of our listeners know who this quote is by, you can comment.
And that goes with any of our quotes, because usually they just come to us. So please correct us if need be, please.
Yes, we would love some correction. But it's like you die twice. So you die the day you actually like stop breathing, but then you also die again when the last person says your name. So there's some people who have passed on and nobody talks about who they are anymore. Like the movie Coco comes to mind. I don't know if
I love Coco.
But like it's like that, where like they have two deaths. They have their death date, and then if their family stops talking about them or the world stops sharing their picture, then they dissolve like into, I don't know where they go. But I think that's where like the legacy part comes in, because once you die, you're going to be remembered for something. And if it's something negative, people will probably not want to keep talking about you. And not saying that I want to be talked about forever, because I know there's other people in the world, but I want my great great grandkids to know, great grandma or great great grandmother wrote this book, and we can bring it to school, and our teachers can read it or something like that. Or, my great great grandkids to be like, oh, my great great grandmother came up with all these tips in her book one day. Here, you can have it. So I'm thinking about my future and just wanting to be able to help people even after, like something I do now, to be able to help people even after I'm gone. Like, is his name Napoleon Hill? If I'm wrong, correct me again.
I don't have any history.
No, is that the guy who like wrote like the law of attract, like all those books about law of attraction and all that stuff? I think is based off of Napoleon Hill's teachings.
You could be very right.
I could be
wrong. And I just watched The Secret the other day, so I should be able to be like, oh yeah, but yeah, that part I didn't catch. So
I think it's Napoleon Hill. I'm just gonna Google this. Yeah, he died in 1970, and he is the one who like started all these like self-help and like look deeper into yourself books and stuff like that. And even though he's gone, to this, like last year for Christmas, I got one of his books. And even after Christmas, I read another one of his books. So like he is not here anymore, but his legacy, his words were still able to help me last year. And so
Yeah.
I want something similar where, like, even when I'm not here, I'm still able to help my family. I'm still able to help moms in the world. I'm still able to help some way.
I like that. I really do. I think it's harder for me to like think about it because I feel like I haven't found my, like your mommy stuff is like your gift to everyone. And like I feel like I haven't yet touched my gift yet.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way right now, like the legacy, like if I died tomorrow, I would just hope that people would be like, oh, she was a hard worker and
He clocked in on time.
she clocked in on time. Like she was doing her best in life. Like that's what I would want people to know me as. But I think it also comes down closer to me, like my reputation, like, everything that you do in life will always come back to you, no matter if you went from being a stripper to the world's biggest pastor. Like it will, it will always turn around and it will always come back to like that information will somehow get out and somehow people will always know. So I think for me right now, it's just keeping a good reputation and like making sure that I'm doing the best thing for me and making sure that I am being helpful to other people and, following the rules, I guess you could say, so that in my future, I have a good standing or I have a good reputation. And I think it even boils back down, what you do in your life affects the people that are around you and it affects your family, so like if let's just say our mom is a wonderful person and probably the most goody goody girl you'll ever meet, but let's just say let's just say we had like a crazy mom and like she was out there robbing banks and stuff.
Crazy. Mom, I'm sure you're gonna watch this. You are crazy.
See, I was trying to be good and this might be why I'm her favorite. But let's just say she was out there robbing banks or something, like robbing banks going crazy. Now we come along and we're in the same town that she's robbing banks at. They're gonna look at us and be like, oh, that's Glenda's girls. They're gonna rob all these banks. Like what you do affects the people around you. And I feel like that is also part that intertwines with your legacy and, how you're remembered and how other people can be known depending on how they're tied to you.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. Like you really have to but you really have to be aware of what you're doing, and be aware of what reputation you're leaving and what taste you're leaving in people's mouths when you meet them, when you do things, when you're at work, when you're at the park, because you never really know who's watching. And again, when you pass away, you don't know what videos, not that you should have to be worried about what people have on you, because what people think about you, or say about you, it matters and it doesn't matter. It shouldn't stop you from pursuing your dream, but at the same time, it matters in the fact that you don't know if that person is going to be the one you have to interview with one day. You don't know if that's going to be the manager at the bank that you have to ask for a business loan from one day. You really don't know who's who when they're not in their work clothes. And so you should always try to be aware of how you're presenting yourself, because you don't know how that's going to affect you. And like Shalik said, you don't know how it'll affect your kids as well, or your friends or your circle. So Shalik, do you think I think I just answered my own question, and you did too, but I think it's safe to say that like we're on the same page where young people should be thinking about their reputation and their legacy from now, would you say?
I would say 100%. I'll be 22 soon. And like I said, I don't know exactly what I know. Whatever I leave behind will be great, but I don't know exactly what my legacy will be and what I will be leaving behind for my children or for my family or for whoever is in my life. But what I do know is that at the stage that I'm at right now in my life, I can work on, like I said, my reputation. I could work on how I'm treating people. I could work on um, my networks, and I can work on, when you think of Shalexandra, what do you think of? Like, when people think of me, I want those positive things to be coming to their mind, and for them to be, happy that they got the chance to meet me, or happy that they had the chance to know me. So although you may not, have something specific, it's important to think about, when you're young and you're out there acting crazy with your friends, like always think about, how could this affect me, or how could this affect my businesses that I want to create, or how could this affect the schools that I want to go to, or how could this affect my children if you want to have children, my children that I want to have down the line. And if you don't want to have children, how could this affect my family's name? We're all known for something. And I think sometimes we get it a little bit selfish, maybe not the word, maybe the word, but where we do certain things and we get in this moment where we're not really thinking about how it's going to affect us, or how it's going to affect our future, or how it's going to affect other people. And we take certain steps and we do certain things, and then down the road we're at the bank asking for the loan because we want to start this amazing business, and it pops up that you did something you weren't supposed to do and you weren't thinking about. Should that ever stop you from completing your dreams? Like Janae said, absolutely not. But it's important, especially in the years of going to college, or in your 20s, like we talked about in our last episode, using your 20s to learn. And it's important to just think about your actions and think about what type of legacy you want to leave behind for either your children or for other people to know about you.
I agree. And I had a couple thoughts while you were talking, and one of them was like, so with legacy, we're talking about what do you want to be remembered for? Because like that is what your legacy is. Like the Oxford definition is going to say like the money you leave behind or the property you leave behind. But when I think of legacy, I'm thinking of the, like Shalik said, the reputation you leave behind, as well as the things you left behind and the feeling you left behind as well. But earlier, Shalik, you said it's a little puzzling because you don't feel like you've found your exact niche or your exact gift yet, or whatever it may be yet. But I think that it doesn't even have to be so grand. Like your legacy doesn't have to be something that's grand, in my opinion. I feel like it could be something simple. Like It could be you want to be remembered for the tomatoes you grew every summer, something like that. Like having like fresh, good tomatoes that your whole family loved. Like, I just, I don't want our listeners to feel like everything has to be so grandiose. If I'm saying that word properly. It can be simple. It can just be, I just want to be remembered for being kind. And that is good enough. And that is something I think we all should be striving for. And then if later on in life you realize like, oh, I want to be remembered for this too, that's great. But I think like, let's not feel like we're not good enough because we just want to be remembered for something small.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I think like when you mention the tomatoes, I think of like I don't know what Ma calls her, but I'm just gonna say great great grandma. Her cake recipe, like that's a legacy that she left behind, and now
I can't wait for that cake every time.
now her nieces and nephews and everyone that has it is able to make a cake and share it with the rest of the family. And I think I like what you said about not feeling good enough. I think it again ties back to our podcast when we talked about pressures and having that time clock. I feel like when you think of a legacy, at least for me, it's a little bit of like a pressure, or like I think of legacy and it's kind of like, whew, oh my God, like, let me try to create something amazing. And I think it's good to know that the little things are important, and like the little things are what people really remember you by. Yeah, the businesses are nice and the properties are nice, and being able to leave back money for your family is amazing and it's super helpful. But something as small as a cake recipe can put a smile on so many people's face, and bring the family closer together. So I really like that you said that, like, even the little things matter.
Yeah, and I love that you made that connection because I love that cake that she's talking about. So our mom has our Jima's recipe.
Yes.
And I've never met this lady. I think she might have passed before we were born.
Yeah.
But I love her cake. I love her recipe. And I am so excited to eat the cake every time my mom makes it. And I even sneak and cut extra slices and take them home with me every time my mom.
Oh, goodness.
And this lady has never met me, but like I can feel her love through her cake. And I think that that's enough. Like that is a beautiful legacy. And that is something that one day when I'm not here, my kids and my great grandkids will still hopefully be replicating that cake recipe and sharing it. And that's something that I think will live on through our family for hopefully generations and generations to come.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's just I love
I made the connection because it was just kind of like anytime, and I don't know if any of our listeners feel like this, but it is a lot of pressure. Like you think of legacy and I'm sitting over here thinking like, okay, I know I want to have businesses, I know I want to have properties, but I don't know what exactly, or even if I do, I may not be ready to share it. So it's just like there's little things about you that are so important for your family to know, and so important for like your children to carry. Like with grandma on our dad's side, sharing her knowledge and her recipes, and now yes, when I was a kid, I was not in the kitchen when I was supposed to be. So I don't
Hang on. It's supposed to be. Our family was a little old school. Women do not have to be in the kitchen. My husband is the one who cooks dinner all the time.
Listen, we grew up with very strict, like Jamaican household.
Yeah.
Very
That's not my household.
For
I
my,
changed
for
that
my
legacy.
Jamaican listeners, y'all may know what I'm talking about. But when I could have been in the kitchen, let me just correct that, right? When I could have been in the kitchen. So, grandma's still alive, but she was able to pass on her knowledge with, her cakes and the oxtails and the snapper, like all the food. And, of course, the morals and the lessons that you learn that she brought back from Jamaica and stuff like that. So I think it's just good to know, like, every little thing counts, like every little thing, even if it's just something like I know sometimes like our dad or our mom or aunts and uncles will mention, like, I remember when my grandfather used to say. So even little things like that, like something that you said or quoting you, or remember how you used to speak or how you used to dress, like that is legacy. That is legacy that is kind of not thought of right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like people remember things you don't think they'll remember. And I have two things really quick. So we just passed Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and the whole world is remembering things about him. And I'm sure in the moment, I don't think what was on his mind was his legacy or even what he wanted to be remembered by. I think he was just driven by passion and driven by knowing that humans should have equal rights and doing what was right. He wanted to just do what was right. And now we're celebrating and remembering him. We should be every day, but sometimes it's just once a year in some situations. I won't get into that, but his legacy will live on forever because he just wanted to do the right thing. So something as just wanting to do the right thing, just wanting to grow the perfect tomatoes, just wanting to bake a nice cake for your family to eat can ripple for generations. Or just wanting to tell people, to help people can turn into a book that is like the #1 best-selling book all over the world for years and years and years after you die, which is crazy. Like, just be aware of what you're passionate about. And for our listeners, we might have asked you this already, but I want to know what you want to be remembered for. And I think like a cool little exercise that you guys could do is like, let us know in the comments what you want to be remembered for. But also, if you don't know, just write like 3 things you think about yourself. Like, I'm a kind person, I'm a this, I'm a that, or this. And that'll be good enough.
Yeah. I like that. Definitely leave those because we will respond to you guys. Leave the chat, leave it in our little question boxes. Because we like hearing those things. And you guys got to hear a little bit about what we want to leave behind or what we're thinking about leaving behind. But I think, some of the key takeaways is that legacy is a big part of life. And once you take a step and starting your journey of life, you're constantly being recognized and constantly being remembered for so many different things. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying like, oh, live your life and like, but you have to be kind of small, but make sure. But always make sure that you're thinking about what you're doing and thinking about your actions and how that can affect your life in the long run. Now, have fun, have a blast, just don't go like super crazy and start doing wild stuff, please. I mean, live your life to the fullest, but if you're trying to do amazing things and open big businesses, just remember everybody knows somebody's always watching. But yeah, we thank you guys for joining us today. We thank you guys for listening and subscribing and chatting with us. We love talking to you guys and having these different discussion topics. So hopefully you guys will join us next time.
Yeah. And we just really, please put it in the comments. Like, what do you want to be remembered for? Because we are really curious. And then it also, if you guys know the name of the person whose quote I quoted earlier, put it in the comments so we can say, I did not come up with that quote. So, yeah. Thank you guys for joining us. And remember, like Shalix said, subscribe. We're on YouTube. If you want to get a vision of our face, get a look at our face, you could follow us on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify or Google Podcasts, and we will catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support our podcast, please share it with friends, chat about it on social media, and don't forget to leave a rating and a 5-star review.
And if you want to peek into our personal lives, you can follow Shalix at Shalixandra on Instagram and Janae at Young Black and Momming It. Whatever you do, make sure to follow the Question It podcast on YouTube and Twitter. We'll chat next week.